All right, chat, we finally got Lucy gameplay. It finally happened. We got the Lucy starter guide, so we're going to go over that today, as well as we actually have some Lucy matches that we can talk about as well. This character seems to have a lot going on, and I have a lot of different thoughts about what we saw with this character so far. So I guess just some initial impressions before we really dive into things. I think she looks potentially really strong. She actually has a lot of the things that you kind of expect out of a good character in this game, which is nice to see. A lot of just generally like well-rounded, effective tools, but she also seems to have a lot of like tech and depth to her as well. So she's kind of got like a good balance of that going on, I would say. And just overall, she looks super fun and interesting, and I'm really excited to get to play her finally. But there is a lot to discuss, so we should start off by going through her starter guide and just letting me, kind of analyze some things and give my thoughts on some of her moves and how I think she's going to end up playing. One of the things that they talk about immediately is that she's actually a very fast character. Her movement speed on the ground, her backdash, all of that stuff is crazy fast. She's like one of the fastest characters in the game, I think. And me and my chat already did some research and counted some frames. A lot of her frame data on her moves looks incredible. Like, she has fast moves, she has safe moves, all of that going for her as well. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through all of her specials. So this is Monowire. This is her 214H. And this move is very comparable to other, what I call frame trap special moves in this game. So things like Kai's 214S, Geo's 214K, those types of moves that you usually, for the most part, use to frame trap the opponent, right? You really want to have these types of moves in this game. This is actually the type of move that characters like Dizzy and Venom have been lacking. They don't have these just generally effective frame trap / combo special moves that really allow them to discourage the opponent from trying to take their turn back when you're on offense. In the case of Lucy, this move seems to be a very effective combo tool, a very effective frame trap tool. It seems to be safe on block. And this is just the type of move that you want to have on a character. It's just generally good to have. And there are some other upsides to it as well. So they mentioned that she can charge the move. So if you hold down the button, it actually changes the hit effect. So it'll actually like ground bounce them and you get a combo off of it. And they also show here that you can effectively like feint the move. So when you're holding down the button, you can press punch to like feint the Monowire. And I think this is really effective because for a move like this, it could technically be reactable if the opponent has a reversal. So if they have like a super or a DP or something like that, they would be able to reversal it on reaction, right? Or maybe even like backdash it on reaction. But the fact that you can feint it means that you can bait those defensive options, right? And on top of that, the feint itself will kind of work like Johnny's Miss Rhino Cancel, where he can just, Miss Rhino Cancel to effectively change his frame data on all of his moves. And from my own frame counting, it seems to be pretty similar to Johnny's frame data, where, if Johnny does like a high attack level move into Miss Rhino Cancel, he's like -4. That seems to be the case for Lucy as well. So overall, this move has a lot going for it for being like a seemingly safe frame trap special move, a good combo tool. And if you charge it, it's also a plus on block guard crush, on top of the fact that you have the cancel option. So just seems like an all-purpose, very strong special move, exactly what you want to see in a character. And it also does this. So whenever you charge it, it will apply the short nerve circuit, which I'm just calling nerve state, because in my opinion, this is very comparable to Testament's stain state. So for the sake of this conversation, I'm just gonna say nerve state because I ain't saying all that. So basically what this does is whenever it hits the opponent, it puts this nerve state on the opponent. And any move using the Monowire, which is most of her moves to be honest, will trigger it on hit specifically. Even her throw, as you can see here, she can actually combo off her throw when the opponent is in this nerve state, which is pretty good. So this is interestingly different from Testament Stain State in a couple of ways, which is one, as I mentioned, it does not proc on moves that don't use the Monowire. So things like her K buttons, for example, won't proc the so moves like her K buttons won't proc this ability. And on top of that, a very different thing in comparison to Testament Stain State is that it only procs on hit. There is no proc on block. And I think this has interesting upsides and downsides. Obviously the downside is, you can't just like force plus frames by proccing this all the time like you can with Stain State. But the advantage there is that, when you look at like Testament, one downside of that character is they don't have very strong offense. So sometimes the way you deal with Stain State is you just dash in and block the Saint State, because obviously it's not great for you, but you'd rather not get hit. And just by blocking it, you're going to get rid of the Saint State, so it's no longer a threat to you, right? In this case, you can't just block until it goes away, not in the same way anyways. So as long as you have it on you, you're constantly threatened by the idea of getting hit by a mono wire move, which I think is a really interesting aspect to the move. And of course, applying this is harder because, as far as I can tell, the only move that applies this is the charged version of her 214H. So in comparison to Testament, Testament has an easier time applying Saint State. But this seems really strong. You know, you can just do this in pressure. You can do this as Oki, as I was talking about earlier. You can OTG with it even. So there seems to be a lot of ways to apply this. And unlike Testament, Lucy actually seems to have strong offense. Specifically, she's very fast, which is nice for strike throw characters. So giving her a throw that she can combo off of seems really good. Overall, I think this mechanic seems really, really effective for her. And I'm really curious to see how that's going to shake out and how much we prioritize that in like combos and OP and stuff. For this special move, this is our 236S. This move is really funny to me. I feel like it's very not impressive, I guess. It just sounds dinky. Like she just shoots a dinky ass gun, and it like the hit effect is very dinky. That's the only way I can describe this move. It just looks dinky. But in any case, the main purpose of this move is for combos. As you can see, if you do all 3 hits, it actually causes a wall bounce, which is good for combo filler. You know, like pretty much everything in the corner will probably lead to a full combo, which is obviously good. They show here that it just whiffs on crouchers, so you're not going to use this as a block string tool. And to be honest, you're probably just not going to use this move very much outside of combos because it just doesn't look very good. You know, I don't think it's supposed to have much utility to it. You know, even if you hit somebody within a neutral, it doesn't do anything. And it's such a risk to go for because they could just jump over it or they can crouch under it. So I don't really have high expectations for this move to be particularly effective. You know, we'll see. At the very least, it looks like a good combo tool. This attack, however, looks absurdly good. So this is effectively a lariat type of move. You know, you just lunge across the screen. Like, look how far this goes. It actually goes across Narnia. It reaches super far, and it seems to be pretty safe on block, especially when it's spaced. And it triggers the nerve state, which is good. And it also has follow-ups. So you can do a follow-up low, or you can do a follow-up overhead like this. And you can Kara these follow-ups. So much like Anji's Fujin, that's a very funny soul expression. Much like Anji's Fujin, you can Kara the startup of the 214K into the low or the overhead. So even though the first hit of it is technically a mid, you can Kara into the low. So you have a near full screen low option, which seems really good. And something else that they show later is that you can cancel this into supers, or at the very least her quick hack super. So, you know, you can just kind of send this in neutral and then like super and maybe B+ on block or get a conversion on hit. There's a lot of utility to this move. I'm also pretty sure that it's fast enough that it just combos from like K buttons and stuff, so it combos from everything. The corner carry on it looks ridiculous. It just, again, looks like one of those like all-purpose utility type special moves that just work all the time, which, you know, you love to see that. So yeah, this move looks pretty degenerate. I think people are going to be spamming that move a lot. This is the low follow-up afterwards, which it seems like she gets really good Oki from it. You can definitely dash up and close slash after that, so that's nice. And it just works from like everything, you know? You can just combo into it no matter what, which is nice. But they do show that the low is punishable, so you do have to be careful with that at least. Use this move cautiously in the right situations. And then she has the overhead follow-up, which is this one. I don't think this one looks that good. I believe it's like 23 or 24 frames from what I counted, which is fairly reactable. You know, with mental sack and stuff like that, it might hit people, I'm not really sure, but it doesn't look great to me. You can combo after it. They show that in her character trailer. You can combo with 2P afterwards, so maybe it might have some purpose. I'm not entirely sure, but it doesn't look great. This surprised me. I was very shocked to see that this character has a DP. She just has an invincible reversal. It's 9 frames, just like most reversals are. You don't get Oki from it, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I mean, having a reversal is better than not, especially considering, by the looks of things, they heavily nerfed YRC in this version of the game. So having a meterless defensive option is very good. This is her first super. This is Livewire. This is also invincible. It does a ton of damage, by the way. Like, at least I feel like that's a ton. I don't actually know. Maybe most supers do this, but it does more damage than the attack looks like, because it doesn't look very impactful, but it actually does a ton of damage. So I mean, it's good. You know, having reversal super is nice, and having a good damaging super is good, obviously. But then there's this aspect. So if you have another 50 meter, and the opponent is low enough on health, this super just kills them. Like literally, it just kills them. They have to be below a certain threshold. They don't really specifically show what that threshold is, so it's kind of hard for me to evaluate how effective this is. But I do think it's interesting. I actually talked about in my 2.0 predictions and like what they might do in that version of the game. One thing I mentioned is instead of having instant kills, they might go the route of giving supers unique animations if they kill. And this super is kind of along those lines. So if the super actually ends up killing the opponent, you get this whole finisher animation. And it automatically uses the meter, so you can't spend the meter unless it will kill. So you don't even have to guess with it, right? It's not like, oh, well, maybe you spend the 100 meter and it doesn't kill them, or whatever. But in any case, it looks like an effective super, and I'm really curious to see how the damage numbers actually play out. It's kind of hard to evaluate until we know exactly how all of that plays out. Also, in regards to wall health, or when you wall break the opponent, how does that work? You know, like, does it factor in the damage from the wall break? But this is the big one, obviously. This is like the character's big unique mechanic. This is quick hack. So when you do the super, it gives her access to a bunch of different quick hacks that she can apply. And as you can see at the top, she has this RAM bar. So she is allotted 24 of these things over here, which are the different quick hack effects that she can use. And in a second, they'll give us a list of the different quick hacks. This special move, or sorry, this super has a interesting thing to talk about though, which is that in this game, having 50 meter is very valuable for a lot of different reasons, whether it's Roman cancels, FD, you know, having meter to break wall with super for a hard knockdown. There's a lot of very compelling reasons to have 50 meter in this game. So this super has to be compelling enough to at least sometimes be worth doing over Roman cancels and stuff like that, right? So I do think there's a world, not saying that it's super likely or whatever, but there is a world where this super doesn't actually see that much play because it just isn't competitive or as versatile as just Roman canceling or supering normally, right? But in any case, I do think there is a chance that this sees play, especially in like positive bonus situations, because one downside to install supers in this game is they put you in meter penalties. You can't gain meter while you're in install. If you're in positive bonus, it basically removes that downside. So I think at least in positive bonus, this might be something you see a lot. And specifically because her special moves are super cancelable, you might use this as a way to extend your pressure as opposed to, you know, Roman cancel or something. But in any case, talking about the actual options themselves, real quick, something to clarify is they don't all proc at once. There's actually like a timer before they all go off. And then you have to hit the opponent to like properly proc them afterwards. And keep in mind the different cost values over here. So each of these cost a set amount. Use as many of any of them as long as it fits within the allotted amount of RAM up at the top. So you're not able to go over 24, but you can have like a bunch of contagions if you want to, for example. There's no like a limit. And to my understanding, if you stack a bunch of them, it just extends the timer. It doesn't extend the potency or anything. It's just they last longer. In any case, the first one we have a contagion, which attacks deal damage over time, is basically a poison effect. This one, I'm not sure how effective it will be. The poison does work even on block, so it just ticks down over time. How effective this will be probably just depends on how much damage the poison itself actually does and how long it will last. It could situationally be nice just because, you know, if you put poison on the opponent, it is slowly killing them, and you can take advantage of that if you have like long pressure sequences, which Lucy might have. But I expect this one to not be super duper useful. The main thing going for it is it only costs 3 RAM, so you might just jam it into your rotation anyways. We'll have to see. Energy Siphon, attack to restore Lucy's health, so this is just health regen. This, I have to imagine, is probably not that useful. From what things look like, it seems like Lucy is a low health character, so healing on the low health character is generally not that impactful because you're gonna die anyways. But it doesn't cost that much RAM, so it might be something you just kind of throw in there. And again, kind of depends on how long your pressure sequences are. Big one, Algorithm Malfunction. Attacks should trigger a counter hit. So this is basically a forced counter hit, and this works also mid-combo. So it's kind of similar to Slayer's Bite state. The big thing for this one is it costs 13, which is a lot. I imagine this one will be really good in block strength and stuff, because if it's forced counter hit, Basically, every frame trap will lead to a very strong combo, and Tap Dust will be comboable as well, which is very nice. But I do think this will be a little less effective than you think, and the fact that it costs 13 RAM is very expensive. And I think mostly it's just going to come down to when and how do we use this super in the first place, whether you'll want to use Malfunction or not. Resistance Glitch, blocked attacks gain more risk level. This one is pretty nice, I think, because it just puts more pressure on the opponent to actually do something defensively. And Lucy seems to, again, have long extended pressure sequences, or at least potential for that. And she's just good at boxing her opponent in the corner because she has long range normals. So I think there is a lot of room that you will probably use this one a lot. And it only costs 9, which is like somewhat expensive, but not too bad. It actually like pairs pretty generously with a lot of the other options, I think. So this one will probably see a fair amount of play. The next one is the one that I'm honestly the most interested in, which is Pacify. Opponents gain less tension gauge. I imagine the way this works is it puts the opponent in meter penalty, like we were talking about earlier. More specifically, I really want to know how long it lasts and if stacking it makes it last considerably longer. Because locking the opponent out of gaining meter, I think, is really, really effective. You know, if you just reduce the amount of options your opponent has, you know, they can't FD, they can't YRC, they can't reversal super, you know, all that stuff. Meter in this game is incredible. So being able to lock your opponent out of that, I think, is really strong. At the same time, though, you are technically spending your own 50 meter to do this and putting yourself in meter penalty. So I'm not sure about that one, but I am very curious to see how it plays out. And then the last one, which I'm blocking, is just the one that turns her invisible or gives her like that glitch effect over her character. This one I don't imagine will be too effective. I do see people saying it's going to be completely useless, which is probably not entirely true. It does mask what you're doing decently well. So, you know, going for tap dust or cross up or something like that. Or specifically, your opponent can't see that you're charging mono wire because you're invisible, right? Biggest thing going for it just is the fact that it only costs 3. So there's going to be a lot of situations where you can just jam a 3 cost into your rotation. And this might be the option you go for because why not? You know, it's just a slight upside, but we'll have to see. This super, I think, has a lot going for it, but it also has a lot that it's competing with. So I don't really have a super strong prediction on how useful it will be, but I do hope that it is good, that it sees at least some play. It would not be terrible if it doesn't see that much play, because I don't think we want the screen to be pausing for several seconds that often in a match anyways. But that's it for her special moves, and I think that my takeaway is that she has really good utility special moves, just like a lot of good coverage on the things that she does. This backed up with the fact that she has amazing mobility, she has amazing normals, really strong pressure sequences by the looks of things. She just seems really well-rounded, but then has that extra potential with like the nerve state and the quick hacks and stuff like that to really kind of push her over the edge. The only downside to notice with her is her damage, like just the numbers on her moves don't seem to do that much damage individually, so that might not be a problem if she converts super consistently. And she seems to be low health based on the match footage that we've seen, so, and that kind of makes sense given everything else she has. So yeah, overall I think she looks really strong, actually. I'm very curious to see how good she is. I think she has a lot of very potentially strong things and has a lot of good utility and just versatility to her kit, I guess. And I don't see many downsides immediately, so I would say compared to most other DLC characters, my initial impression is way higher than usual. That said, those are just my thoughts on the character. I'm very excited to play her, and at this point, we don't have much longer to wait. You know, like we're talking just a couple of days. We're probably going to get patch notes very soon as well. I'm looking forward to streaming this character a lot. I do plan on putting out a character guide for her as well, so you guys won't want to miss out on any of that stuff I have planned. But I do want to know down in the comments below, how do you guys feel about Lucy? Did you guys think that this character looks very exciting from this character trailer? Does she play like you thought she would? Does she play differently? Let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear that. In any case, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.